In church lessons, we try to explain to young people the context in which Jesus instituted the Lord's Supper. For this reason, we invite everyone to sit on the floor where we have set up a long table with a white paper tablecloth on which each person has a plate, a glass, a spoon, and a fork. When 50 people sit in such a room, it truly looks like a great feast. We make it very clear to the young people what we are doing here is not a Passover meal. It is only meant to illustrate how the Jews celebrate this great festival. We then explain, using salt water, how tears taste, symbolizing the time when the Israelites were in Egyptian captivity. We use a fruit puree to hint at how difficult it was to make bricks for the pyramids. The bitter herbs show how bitter the time of slavery was for the people. And of course, we also explain when Jesus instituted the bread and when he instituted the wine, the symbol that represents him. We remember God's great deliverance together with the people of Israel. This is exactly what a psalmist in the Old Testament did centuries ago. And in the weekly impulse, he invites the people of his time, "Come and see the works of God, who is so wonderful in his deeds toward humankind." This man wants people to remember how wonderfully God has acted towards his people. Specifically, he refers to the deliverance, protection, and guidance they experienced. And that brings us to our task as Christians today. This verse invites us to become aware of God's work in the world anew. Nowadays, many tend to look for God only in extraordinary miracles or dramatic experiences. But this psalm reminds us that God's works are often visible in everyday things, in creation, in human life, in moments of protection and healing. As Christians, we are called to recognize these signs of God and to share them, both in our community and in our personal lives. So, the question is, when was the last time you shared about God's work? Just as Israel looks back on its history, we should also look at our own lives. And then we will realize, as a hymn writer once put it, in how much distress has our gracious God not spread his wings over us? It is undeniable that many people experience crisis, doubts, and hardships. But this psalm encourages us not only to look ahead, but also to recognize where God has already worked, in both small and great things. This trust helps us not to lose courage, even in difficult times. We must also remember that faith is not just a personal matter. In a time when religion is often privatized, this verse reminds us that the praise of God has a communal dimension. Church and community are places where we give testimony together to God's deeds and celebrate Him. And if God is so wonderful in His deeds toward us humans, it does not just mean that we admire His works, but that we are also called to be instruments of His action. People in need require our help. The oppressed need people who stand up for justice. Those without hope need a sign of God's love. And so we return to the example from the beginning. Jesus showed us how to do it. He calls us to remember, and after each Lord's Supper, to go out and bear witness to how wonderful God is in His deeds towards mankind. Loving God, you are great and wonderful. To you belong the glory. To you belongs my praise. I want to magnify you and tell of your deeds. May my praise be pleasing to you and help me to share your story with words that people can understand. Amen.